Chapter 3 of Captains Courageous. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording is by Mark Smith of Simpsonville, South Carolina. Captains Courageous by Rudyard Kipling. Chapter 3. It was the 40-fathom slumber that clears the soul and eye and heart, and sends you to breakfast ravening. They emptied a big tin dish of juicy fragments of fish, the blood ends the cook had collected overnight. They cleaned up the plates and pans of the elder mess, who were out fishing, sliced pork for the midday meal, swabbed down the foc'sle, filled the lamps, drew coal and water for the cook, and investigated the forehold, where the boat's stores were stacked. It was another perfect day, soft, mild, and clear, and Harvey breathed to the very bottom of his lungs. More schooners had crept up in the night, and the long blue seas were full of sails and dories. Far away on the horizon, the smoke of some liner, her hull invisible, smudged the blue, and to eastward a big ship's topgallant sails, just lifting, made a square nick in it. Disko Troop was smoking by the roof of the cabin, one eye on the craft around, and the other on the little fly at the mainmast head.
"When Dad kerflummoxes that way," said Dan in a whisper, "he's doin' some high-line thinkin' fer all hands. I'll lay my wage an' share we'll make berth soon. Dad he knows the cod, an' the fleet they know Dad knows. See 'em comin' up, one by one, lookin' fer nothin' in particular, o' course, but scrougin' on us all the time. There's the Prince Leboa, she's a Chatham boat. She's crep up since last night. An' see that big one with a patch in her foresail an' a new jib? She's the Carrie Pitman from West Chatham. She won't keep her canvas long on 'less her luck's changed since last season. She don't do much 'cep' drift. There ain't an anchor made 'll hold her. When the smoke puffs up in little rings like that, Dad's studyin' the fish. If we speak to him now, he'll git mad. Last time I did, he jest took an' hove a boot at me." Disko Troop stared forward, the pipe between his teeth, with eyes that saw nothing. As his son said, he was studying the fish, pitting his knowledge and experience on the Banks against the roving cod in his own sea. He accepted the presence of the inquisitive schooners on the horizon as a compliment to his powers, but now that it was paid he wished to draw away and make his berth alone, till it was time to go up to the Virgin and fish in the streets of that roaring town upon the waters. So Disko Troop thought of recent weather, and gales, currents, food supplies, and other domestic arrangements, from the point of view of a 20-pound cod, was, in fact, for an hour a cod himself, and looked remarkably like one. Then he removed the pipe from his teeth. "Dad," said Dan, "we've done our chores. Can't we go overside a piece? It's good catchin' weather."
Not in that cherry-colored rig nor them half-baked brown shoes. Give him something fit to wear."
"Dad's pleased. That settles it,"
said Dan delightedly, dragging Harvey into the cabin, while Troop pitched a key down the steps.
"Dad keeps my spare rig where he can overhaul it, 'cause Ma says I'm keerless."
He rummaged through a locker, and in less than 3 minutes Harvey was adorned with fisherman's rubber boots that came half up his thigh, a heavy blue jersey well darned at the elbows, a pair of flippers, and a sou'wester.
"Naow you look somethin' like," said Dan. "Hurry!"
"Keep nigh an' handy," said Troop, "an' don't go visitin' round the fleet. If any one asks you what I'm calc'latin' to do, speak the truth, fer you don't know." A little red dory, labeled Hattie S., lay astern of the schooner. Dan hauled in the painter and dropped lightly on to the bottom boards, while Harvey tumbled clumsily after.
"That's no way of getting into a boat," said Dan. "If there was any sea, you'd go to the bottom sure. You've got to learn to meet her."
Dan fitted the thole pins, took the forward thwart, and watched Harvey's work. The boy had rowed, in a ladylike fashion, on the Adirondack ponds, But there is a difference between squeaking pins and well-balanced rowlocks, light sculls and stubby 8-foot sea oars. They stuck in the gentle swell, and Harvey grunted. "Short. Row short," said Dan. "Ef you cramp your oar in any kind o' sea, you're liable to turn her over. Ain't she a daisy? Mine, too." The little dory was specklessly clean. In her bows lay a tiny anchor, 2 jugs of water, and some 70 fathoms of thin, brown dory roding. A tin dinner horn rested in cleats just under Harvey's right hand, beside an ugly-looking maul, a short gaff, and a shorter wooden stick. A couple of lines, with very heavy leads and double cod hooks, all neatly coiled on square reels, were stuck in their place by the gunwale. "Where's the sail and mast?" said Harvey, for his hands were beginning to blister. Dan chuckled. "You don't sail fishing dories much. You pull, but you needn't pull so hard. Don't you wish you owned her?" "Well, I guess my father might give me one or two if I asked him," Harvey replied. He had been too busy to think much of his family till then. "That's so. I forgot your dad's a millionaire. You don't act millionairy any, now. But a dory and craft and gear" Dan spoke as though she were a whaleboat "costs a heap. Think your dad'd give you one for a pet like?" "Shouldn't wonder. It would be 'most the only thing I haven't stuck him for yet." "Must be a expensive kinder kid to home. Don't slitheroo that way, Harve. Short's the trick, because no sea's ever dead still, and the swells'll crack!" The loom of the oar kicked Harvey under the chin and knocked him backward. "That was what I was going to say. I had to learn, too, but I wasn't more than 8 years old when I got my schoolin'." Harvey regained his seat with aching jaws and a frown. "No good gettin' mad at things, Dad says. It's our own fault ef we can't handle 'em, he says. Let's try here. Manuel'll give us the water." The Portugee was rocking fully a mile away, but when Dan upended an oar he waved his left arm 3 times. 30 fathom," said Dan, stringing a salt clam on to the hook. "Over with the doughboys. Bait same as I do, Harve, and don't snarl your reel." Dan's line was out long before Harvey had mastered the mystery of baiting and heaving out the leads. The dory drifted along easily. It was not worth while to anchor till they were sure of good ground. "Here we come!" Dan shouted, and a shower of spray rattled on Harvey's shoulders as a big cod flapped and kicked alongside. "Muckle, Harvey, muckle! Under your hand, quick!" Evidently muckle could not be the dinner horn, so Harvey passed over the maul, and Dan scientifically stunned the fish before he pulled it inboard, and wrenched out the hook with a short wooden stick he called a gob stick. Then Harvey felt a tug, and pulled up zealously. "Why, these are strawberries!" he shouted. "Look!" The hook had fouled among a bunch of strawberries, red on one side and white on the other, perfect reproductions of the land fruit, except that there were no leaves, and the stem was all pipy and slimy. "Don't touch 'em! Slat 'em off! Don't—" The warning came too late. Harvey had picked them from the hook and was admiring them. "Ouch!" he cried, for his fingers throbbed as though he had grasped many nettles. "Now you know what strawberry bottom means. Nothin' 'cep fish should be teched with the naked fingers, Dad says. Slat 'em off agin the gunwale, and bait up, Harve. Lookin' won't help any. It's all in the wages." Harvey smiled at the thought of his $10.50 a month, and wondered what his mother would say if she could see him hanging over the edge of a fishing dory in mid-ocean. She suffered agonies whenever he went out on Saranac Lake, and by the way, Harvey remembered distinctly that he used to laugh at her anxieties. Suddenly the line flashed through his hand, stinging even through the "flippers," the woolen circlets supposed to protect it. "He's a logy! Give him room accordin' to his strength," cried Dan. "I'll help ye." "No, you won't," Harvey snapped as he hung on to the line. "It's my first fish. Is it a whale?" "Halibut, maybe." Dan peered